The name Paul McCartney almost always arrives with the towering shadow of the Beatles, a band that didn't merely change the direction of popular music, but reshaped how the world listens to, writes, and feels songs. So when the Beatles finally came to an end, the question was never just, what would Paul do next? It was something far heavier. Could there be a creative life after a legacy that massive? Paul's answer didn't come in the form of one instantly revolutionary album or a single era-defining hit. It arrived slowly, sometimes hesitant, sometimes explosive, sometimes deeply intimate, almost as if the songs were written first and foremost for himself. Paul McCartney's solo career is a story of creative survival, writing through loss, enduring sharp criticism, and carrying expectations that were nearly impossible to satisfy. And it is precisely from that process that songs emerged which are not only musically remarkable, but emotionally essential. Songs that don't attempt to outshine the past, but instead make peace with it. What follows are 10 of the best Paul McCartney songs after the Beatles era, a long journey through love and freedom, quiet sorrow, and simple joys that feel profoundly human. Number 1. Maybe I'm Amazed, 1970.
Maybe I'm amazed at the way you love me all the time.
This song was not born out of confidence, but out of quiet devastation. When writing Maybe I'm Amazed, Paul McCartney was at the most fragile point of his life. The Beatles had collapsed, relationships between the members had frozen, and for the first time since his teenage years, he had to define himself without the band that had been his world for over a decade. What's striking is that the song was created almost entirely in solitude. Paul recorded it himself, playing most of the instruments at home, not in a grand studio. The piano that sounds so simple was not the result of a deliberate minimalist concept, but a reflection of his mental state, plain, honest, almost without protection. Paul's vocal rises and falls, sometimes nearly breaking, and it is not polished. He allowed raw emotion to remain in the recording. This is not a love song written from a position of safety. It is a song by someone who was saved by love when everything else collapsed. To this day, Maybe I'm Amazed is often cited by critics and musicians across generations as the emotional foundation of McCartney's solo career, a true ground zero, honest rather than a polished triumph. Number 2. Band on the Run, 1973. Band on the Run sounds like a story of freedom and adventure, but its creation was filled with chaos. While working on it with Wings, Paul faced layered pressure: media that dismissed his new band, a label demanding proof, and a public that constantly compared him to his Beatles past. The album's recording was even marked by extreme events. Demo tapes were lost, band members quit, and Paul was forced to reconstruct parts of the songs from memory. From this, Band on the Run was born not as a neatly planned piece, but as a response to desperate circumstances. The song's shifting structure, gloomy, rebellious, then exploding into euphoria, mirrors Paul's own inner state. This is not a song about cowardly escape, but about the courage to leave an invisible prison, expectations, history, and the label of former Beatle. When the song finally became a global hit, it marked an important moment. The world began to see Paul McCartney not as a shadow of the past, but as a new creative center. Number 3. Live and Let Live, 1973. When the James Bond film producers approached Paul McCartney to write a theme song, their expectations were simple: something grand, elegant, and safe, true to Bond tradition. But Paul was never comfortable staying on the safe path for too long. Instead of following the classic Bond mold of smooth glamour, he created a song that feels like an emotional explosion.
Live and Let Live moves to extremes, from a gentle, almost fragile ballad suddenly erupting into aggressive rock with a threatening orchestral force. That brutal transition feels shocking and intentional. In its creation, Paul deliberately collided two worlds rarely fused so directly, a rock band in a large orchestral arrangement. This wasn't just about scale, but tension. The music feels like a ticking bomb, calm on the surface, dangerous underneath. The song became a bold statement that McCartney's solo career would not be small or merely radio safe. He wanted to remain relevant, risky, and theatrical. Live and Let Live proves that Paul was not only a writer of sweet melodies, but an architect of cinematic-scale musical drama.
Number 4. Jet, 1973. If Live and Let Die is a controlled explosion, then Jet is pure release. The song feels like Paul finally taking a deep breath and then running forward without looking back. Jet emerged from more spontaneous recording sessions, where energy became the main compass. There was no grand concept weighing it down. Paul let instinct lead, a guitar riff that hits from the first second, vocals pushed forward, in a tempo that barely leaves room for doubt. The lyrics are deliberately left vague, even absurd. Paul showed no interest in explaining them, as if freeing the song from the obligation to be understood. What matters is not literal meaning, but sensation, speed, noise, and raw joy. In the context of his career, Jet is important because it directly rebutes criticism that Paul was too soft or too safe. The song seems to say, before judging, listen to the energy, because here, McCartney's rock instinct is still alive and loud. Number 5. Uncle Albert / Admiral Halsey, 1971.
We're so sorry, Uncle Albert.
Uncle Albert / Admiral Halsey sounds like a dream wandering without a map. The song doesn't move in a straight line. It jumps, swerves, and shifts mood without warning. And that is precisely its strength. In its creation, the song was not born as a single unified piece. It was assembled from fragments of ideas that were initially separate, melodic snippets, lyrics, and atmospheres later stitched together like a collage. Paul followed intuition, not conventional pop structure. Rain sound effects, sudden tempo changes, and odd transitions make the song feel almost like a surreal short film. This is leftover experimental DNA from the late Beatles era, but without collective compromise. Free, personal, and unmistakably McCartney. Most surprising of all, such a strange song became a major chart success, proof that the public was still willing to follow Paul into experimental territory, as long as he carried strong melodies and a human touch within them. Number 6. Silly Love Songs, 1976.
You think that people wouldn't have enough of silly love songs?
Silly Love Songs was born from mockery and turned into victory. In the mid-1970s, as music grew more cynical and political, Paul McCartney was often ridiculed for writing too many love songs. The dismissive question lingered, were love songs still relevant? Instead of defending himself with arguments, Paul answered with a song, a love song that directly commented on the criticism itself. The dominant funk bass line, light but precise groove, and instantly catchy chorus display McCartney's nearly mathematical pop intelligence. This was no accident. The song was designed to be unavoidable. Most importantly, Paul was not apologizing. He was celebrating simplicity. To him, straightforward emotion was not weakness, but honesty. When Silly Love Songs became a massive hit, the criticism collapsed under reality. Love, no matter how simple, remains pop music's most powerful fuel. Number 7. Let Me Roll It, 1973.
If Silly Love Songs is an open celebration, then Let Me Roll It is a closed conversation. The song moves slowly, heavily, and almost hypnotically, like a mind circling a thought that never truly ends. Paul's vocals are layered with thick echo, creating a strange sense of distance and intimacy at once. The groove repeats, nearly monotonous, as if refusing to move forward. It's no surprise that many listeners and music historians interpret the song as a quiet dialogue with John Lennon. Paul himself never gave a final answer. He neither confirmed nor denied it, but from the way the song is constructed, it's clear he intentionally created a restrained atmosphere. There is no big climax or emotional explosion, only repetition, like a mind returning to the same memory again and again. Let Me Roll It is not sweet nostalgia. It's not about wanting to return to the past. It's about accepting that some relationships are never fully resolved, about making peace with a shadow without reigniting it. In the post-Beatles context, the song feels like Paul finally allowing himself to feel longing without turning it into public drama.
Number 8. My Love, 1973.
It's in the hands of my love.
My Love arrives like a whisper amid the noise. At a time when Paul was known for big, theatrical songs layered with production, this one chose the opposite path: calm, spacious, and nearly conflict-free. In its creation, Paul consciously set aside grand ambition. The focus was not on complex arrangements or artistic statements, but on melody and feeling. The instruments are allowed to breathe. Nothing overlaps. Each note is given space to exist and to leave. The lyrics follow the same approach: not dramatic, not trying to impress. My Love feels like a personal confession, not intended for mass consumption. Yet, precisely because of that, it becomes universal. The song doesn't demand attention, it simply exists, calm and sincere. And perhaps that is its timelessness. My Love is not tied to any era, trend, or recording technology. It stands as a reminder that gentleness is not weakness. In McCartney's long catalog, the song proves that simple honesty can endure longer than grandeur. Number 9. Coming Up, 1980. When many of his contemporaries began to seem left behind by changing times, Paul McCartney showed an almost childlike curiosity. Coming Up was born in an era dominated by new wave, synth pop, and identity exploration, and Paul didn't resist the current. He played along. The recording process was among the most experimental of his career. Paul performed multiple personas, literally voicing different characters. His vocals shift constantly, as if he were looking into a mirror and conversing with himself. Musically, Coming Up feels funky, strange, and full of humor. The song doesn't try to sound young in a desperate way. It sounds like a veteran who is still curious and unafraid of looking silly. In the context of his career history, Coming Up is an important statement. McCartney's creativity never settled in one era. He didn't live off nostalgia. He moved, changed, and kept experimenting even when the world expected him to stop playing. Number 10. Here Today. Here Today was written in a heavy silence, the kind that only comes after an inexplicable loss. After John Lennon's death, Paul did not respond immediately with a song. He waited, and when he finally wrote, he chose the simplest approach: guitar, voice, words. The creation process rejected all forms of dramatization. No orchestra, no grand production, no attempt to build an emotional climax. The song is left bare, as if Paul wanted to ensure that nothing stood between the listener and its core message. And it is precisely this simplicity that makes the song hit the deepest. Nothing is hidden, nothing is exaggerated, just honesty that arrived late but still needed to be spoken.